And so what we've really tried to do here is remove all of that friction, make it very simple for DJs and producers to know what they can use, to know what they're able to do with the content that we have under license, and to ultimately focus on creating content, which is what they should be doing, and not worry about all of this licensing stuff, which, folks like us can handle for them.
You're listening to Music Growth Talks, the podcast for musicpreneurs, with Andrew Apanoff.
Hello everyone, Andrew Apanoff here with a new edition of the Music Growth Talks podcast. This might very well be the last regular episode of 2018, but we'll see in 2 weeks. There might be something special I'll prepare for you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show in the meantime, and while I would highly recommend all of you to listen to it, to learn something new at the release, even if it's not directly applicable to your career, I understand that these episodes will be mostly appreciated by DJs, hip-hop artists and producers who have done an unofficial remix of someone else's tune at least once. As today, I'm talking to Stephen White, who, by the way, used to serve as the president of Gracenote, and who is the CEO of Dubset. I remember Dubset as a platform for uploading your mixes, but that was almost 10 years ago. Eventually, they pivoted into this unique technological solution for clearing musical content that is not easy to clear traditionally, like at all. And you will get some context to that from Stefan as well. And I know that a lot of you are familiar with the issues around clearing a DJ mix, for example. It's pretty much like impossible traditionally. And of course, by clearing, I mean obtaining the required licenses to legally release a remix or a mixtape or a DJ mix. Dubset just partnered with SoundCloud, and they are onto something really big in my opinion. As one example of what it means to the music industry and to the listeners, there is the live mixtape by J. which was recorded live a couple months back, and it's the first mixtape of this kind which got cleared and released on Spotify, Apple Music and Tidal, all thanks to Dubset. There is a number of other related topics we've covered with Stefan here. Each of you may learn something new, so listen on and don't forget to consider supporting this podcast on Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes at dartedmusic.com or just go to patreon.com/Andrew Apanoff. Thank you lots, your support is greatly appreciated. And now my conversation with Stephen White from Dubset. Here we go. Stefan, welcome to Music Growth Talks. Very excited to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
If you don't mind this direct question to something very specific right away, do you mind sharing what the live mixtape is?
Sure. The live mixtape is a pretty exciting project that we just did with J. For those that don't know who J. is, he's a pretty well-known DJ from LA, lives in Brooklyn now. And Jay has been very well known for doing mixtapes throughout his career. And the live mixtape, what he's done is he's pulled together multiple very famous, MCs, and they've recorded a mixtape live in one take, all on stage in front of a live audience, with Jay, performing as a DJ and laying down the backing tracks and beats, and the MCs performing live, often recording, performing their own songs, and in some cases, doing freestyles or performing other people's content. The result is this amazing, hour-long show that, if you listen to it, really is a great rap hip-hop performance, but is also, a really groundbreaking clearance and distribution from our side, because we, for the first time, have been able to fully clear the use of the underlying content and distribute it legally out into Spotify and Apple and other services.
And it's up now on the platforms you mentioned, right?
It's live on Apple, Spotify, and Tidal today. And then you can see teasers on YouTube, which will take you to those platforms.
We are linking to everything in the show notes, so everyone listening to us, go to you know where the show notes are. So so it's really cool, and it's great that we can actually experience this very special thing from the creative perspective as a mixtape, but as a live mixtape, it's really cool in my opinion. But then from the industry perspective, because you are doing something unique here, and well, I have questions to you about how dubstep operates right now, but I know that over the years you've made a few pivots and tried different models. I've been following you for quite some years now. Do you mind maybe sharing how it all started?
Sure. The company was founded by a guy named David Stein. And David had, a very, good vision as to, what was going to happen with DJs and DJ culture. And, I met with David before he started the company because he wanted some advice on how to start it. And he said three things to me that were I thought very telling. The first was, he said, electronic music, dance music is kind of the hip hop of our generation. It's going to continue to grow in popularity and is really going to be kind of the, musical style and genre that's most popular with, people 18 to 25. He said, DJs are the new rock stars. And, over the next several years, you'll see DJs starting to crack the top 10 in terms of creating music and creating their own music. And then he said, in a world where streaming is really taking off and there's going to be so much music available to consumers, it's going to be very hard for people to find things and to discover new music. And who better to, be that curator for them than a DJ, professional DJ that knows what they're doing. And so I agreed with all three of those things. And so I agreed to kind of help him get started and help him start the company. The company was originally started to be a direct-to-consumer service, much like SoundCloud is today, to allow creators to upload mixes and remixes and for that content to then be available for folks to consume. We decided very early on, primarily because we've been working in the music industry for so long, not to do that without the proper licenses in place.
Right.
And so we started in 2009 working with the record labels and the publishers to create a new licensing regime for DJ content. And it's a pretty challenging set of new licensing terms that had to be created. We had to figure out how we were going to deal with this new format, which is a DJ mix, which very often is, an hour to an hour and a half long, sometimes as long as 4 or 5 hours long. In that mix, there are songs used, but very often the songs are not used in their entirety. There are pieces and parts that are used within the mix.
Right.
And so we had to come up with a whole new structure, both with regards to how to license this content and how to pay for it. And so we worked for many years to put licenses in place. And we realized in about 2014, after trying for 4 or 5 years to get these licenses in place, that it was going to be very challenging for us to compete with SoundCloud, but more importantly, to compete with Apple and Spotify and Amazon and Google, who were all at that point, fairly mature in terms of the types of music offerings they had in market. And so we pivoted the company, we changed direction, and we decided to become a supplier of this content to those larger services, to act as a back-end provider to support the industry in clearing and distributing this content, but to not, worry about being the forward-facing, consumer-facing application for it.
Yeah.
And that's been very successful for us. We put our first big licensing deals in place with Sony Music. They were the very first major label to embrace this type of content. And, kudos to them, hats off to Sony. They really, kind of paved the way for everyone else in terms of, embracing what we're doing and supporting what we're doing. Yeah. From there, we've been able to now bring over 50,000 labels and publishers onto the platform. And we've got, 30 plus million songs now under license, all in the model of us getting content in either directly from, DJs or working with partners like SoundCloud. We just announced a big partnership with SoundCloud. And then taking that content and distributing it out to services like Apple, Spotify, Tidal, Deezer.
I, of course, am going to ask you more about the SoundCloud partnership.
Sure.
I remember about I remember the first iteration of Dubset. I remember uploading some mixes of our artists there. Actually, I really like the direct to consumer side of it as well. But totally,
Yep.
I mean, it was really difficult to compete with. SoundCloud being the primary platform for mixes at the time. Things changed over years, but like what you are doing right now, I mean, for producers and for DJs listening to us right now, this is a very, very common theme. They know very well that if they upload their unofficial remix on SoundCloud, it will be taken down most probably, for example. So some basic understanding is there. But can you maybe comment on why and how difficult the process of clearing a remix has been traditionally in the music industry?
Yeah, well, traditionally the process has required, content creator, producer, DJ to retain counsel, so to hire a lawyer, to then reach out to the label that you want to use the song from, to enter into a negotiation with them around the cost of using that song. If you can even get somebody to respond. I mean, many of the inquiries, into labels and publishers around, creating remixes or clearing content just go unanswered.
Yeah.
Because there's so many folks, asking. And if they do get answered, it typically takes quite some time. And we've had negotiations around single clearances that have taken more than 6 months for, one song. And so it's a very broken process today. It's very manual. Each negotiation is unique and, requires a lawyer on the other side that's very expensive. And so it's an expensive, time-consuming process. At the end of the day, what typically comes back is a request for an advance. And so, a DJ or a producer, especially young up-and-coming DJs and producers, are often faced with, a fairly large sum of money that they have to pay in order to put something out. And it's very difficult in a world of streaming to recoup that advance. And so, it's just a broken system, and one that doesn't work in a world where content creation has exploded and anybody can be, a producer or a DJ, in their bedroom with a laptop.
Yeah.
And so what we've really tried to do here is remove all of that friction, make it very simple for DJs and producers to know what they can use, to know what they're able to do with the content that we have under license, and to ultimately focus on creating content, which is what they should be doing, and not worry about all of this licensing stuff, which, folks like us can handle for them.
Excellent. And yet the projects like the live hip hop mixtape become possible as well, which is really cool. So you mentioned being able to identify which song, for example, can be used in a mix. So how exactly it would work for a DJ out there? And maybe you want to talk about the SoundCloud partnership, which is huge,
Sure.
by the way, right away as well.
Yeah, so the main thing for DJs and producers is to go, sign up and get an account at Mixbank. It doesn't cost anything for a DJ or producer. They can go to www.mixbank.com and just sign up. And that then gives them access to Dubset's service. And through Mixbank, they can do a couple different things. They can upload existing unofficial remixes and mixes that they've created. And those go through a process of audio identification where we use audio fingerprinting technologies and a bunch of additional heuristics and pattern matching and other technology to understand what content they've used. So what songs they've used in their mixes or what songs they based their remix on. And then based on that, we then look at the deals that we have in place, the licenses that we have from various labels and publishers, and determine if we're able to clear the mix or remix. And if we are, then we distribute it right out to our distribution platform. It goes out to Apple, it goes out to Spotify, it goes out to Tidal, etc. The other thing that DJs and producers can do inside of Mixbank is they can access both catalog search, which allows them to search all of the catalog and find if a given song that they want to use is in the system, and if it's in the system, whether or not it can be used. And then we've also produced sets of lists that we call crates, which are kind of like the old school milk crates that DJs carried around with the records inside. You couldn't carry all your records, so you had to pick the 100 or 200 records that you were going to play that night. And so these lists are very much like that. They're lists of, about 1,000 songs that just give a DJ a very quick set of content that they can, pick from to either create a mix or to create a remix.
Got it.
And then, SoundCloud, the way the SoundCloud partnership works, the first phase of this partnership is really about identifying content that's on the SoundCloud platform that is in the dubset library that we do have under license. And in doing so, pulling that content out of the kind of unidentified, set of user-generated content on SoundCloud and pulling it into the known set of content on SoundCloud. And that doesn't mean a lot to a producer or a DJ, but what it does mean to the industry and what it does mean to SoundCloud is that SoundCloud is now able to monetize that content, meaning they can sell advertisement against it in their free tier. They can push it into their paid tier in a way that the, underlying artists, get paid directly for the use of that content. And so it creates a path for this content to be kind of official in the SoundCloud ecosystem. And that's a hugely important thing for the industry, primarily the piece around being able to target advertising around it. Advertisers are not going to allow their advertisements to be served against content that they don't know what it is. The concern is that there's objectionable material there. They don't know, if the content is consistent with their brand. And so it's very hard for companies like SoundCloud to monetize against content that's unidentified.
It's quite disruptive. I think it's really important for the industry and over the years. It's not, there hasn't been an elegant solution to this. It's also definitely keeping an eye on what you guys do. I think it's a really important step for SoundCloud as well. Really naturally feeling kind of partnership. And I really appreciate that you shared how Mixbank works. I'm linking to it in the show notes as well. So for anyone interested, it doesn't take much time to just sign up and see how it works.
And free, of course.
This is one of the main questions I get asked about when I recommend a new service or a platform. So I'm glad that you mentioned. Yeah, just wanted to mention how I remember well with my DJ background, carrying around vinyl records. The things have shifted interestingly into this digital era right now, and this tool is quite crucial for any DJs out there who want to monetize their content and even just to spread it and have their mixes up without worrying that a mix they just uploaded is taken down or just their account is blocked or whatnot. So really cool cool things here. Are there any other partnerships or new developments for 2019 that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk a little bit about Apple, because Apple Music has really led the charge in terms of highlighting and showcasing DJ content. They just last week made DJ mixes a genre within Apple's service and given it its own dedicated section inside of their service. So for the first time, users of Apple Music can go to a single place and see all of the DJ mixes that are available on Apple's service and access them all, in a very simple way. And Apple has really just done a tremendous job in terms of pushing the envelope, continue to put great partnerships in place, like the one they have with Ministry of Sound, Dubset Powers, the Mix series that's part of that. And you'll see more of those types of, partnerships and relationships coming to bring really exceptional content into Apple's platform. And they'll continue to highlight and really showcase DJ content in ways that other services just aren't doing yet. And so it's really, I think, a very important step forward, again, for the industry in terms of properly recognizing the contributions of DJs the amazing content that they create and giving it its own.
Absolutely. And it seems like it's still a challenge with some of the services out there. So, I mean, you've secured deals with the biggest players essentially, but as I understand, it's still quite a process with other partners and streaming platforms and stores as well, right?
Yeah, you'll see us continue to distribute mixes and remixes into additional services. We'll add more services, over the course of 2019. We hope to have some big announcements coming pretty soon on that front. And we'll also continue to add, additional content. As I mentioned, we're almost 35 million tracks right now. We hope that by the end of 2019, that number is closer to 50, 60 million. So we'll continue to add content, as we continue to do deals with labels and publishers.
Glad to hear that. One of the last questions I've had is how content creators, producers, for example, and artists can monetize their music through user-generated content using the platform. So is it something that so an artist listening to us should discuss with their record label, or how the process looks like for record labels joining the platform?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Record labels can join a very similar way that a DJ or a publisher can. A producer can. So they can just go to mixbank.com and sign up as a label as well, or as a publisher. And so in many instances, we work with producers who do all three things. They're a DJ, they have their own label, and they also control their own publishing. You can sign up for all three of those types of accounts through mixbank.com, and get us your catalog so that your content can be used in DJ mixes and in remixes and be monetized through the platform. And then if they're working with a record label that isn't theirs, that they don't control, yes, just talk to the record label and let them know that you want your content to be used in mixes and remixes, and you want them to make it available through Dubset via Mixbank.
And it's called MixScan, right?
MixScan is the technology we use to recognize the content that's used. All of the labels, publishers, producers, DJs, all interface with us through Mixbank.
Okay.
Mixbank is the platform that they should be using.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. So, yeah, those interested and anyone who's new to Dubset know where exactly to go to. Great. Really exciting. I love the times we live in. So many interesting things happening that are absolutely new and, once again, in my opinion, disruptive. Keep up the great job. Any call to action or a recommendation to industry people, mainly musicians listening to us right now, anything that can be unrelated to what you do right now, but that's been on your mind maybe, to the creators listening to us right now?
Sure. Just, continue to create great content. Don't be concerned about these rights issues. Know that the industry is going to figure this stuff out and make it easier for folks to continue to distribute their content. Also, keep your eyes on the NAMM show this year that happens in January. There'll be a lot of new hardware and software announcements there, including some, new integrations that are very exciting for the content creator community, for DJs in particular, I'm super, super excited about. And I think really will change the game in terms of making it so simple for content creators, producers, DJs to get their content into services like ours directly from the hardware and software that they use to create content.
That's an interesting teaser. I won't be at NAMM myself, but I will be reading the news carefully now that you mentioned that. Sounds quite big. Thank you, and thanks for the kind words to our artists listening to this episode right now, and appreciate your time and sharing everything you've shared today about Dubset. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you guys learned something new here. If you end up using Mixbank or benefiting from Dubset in any way, hit me up via email or on Twitter or Instagram. Would love to get some case studies from our listeners. Don't forget to find the links to everything we talked about with Stefan at datedmusic.com. There, just look up a post with MGT124. It's an interesting episode number, by the way, in the title of the blog post. So MGT124 with Stephen White from Dubset. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet, and thank you a lot for listening.
You've been listening to Music Growth Talks with Andrew Apanoff. Find more episodes and subscribe at musicgrowthtalks.com.